It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Apple is open sourcing HomeKit and getting together with Google and Amazon for a new IoT standard. Has heck freezing over? Walt Mossberg looks back at a decade of Apple, and why do my AirPods smell like blueberries? It's all coming up next. Our last MacBreak Weekly of 2019.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 693, recorded Monday, December 23rd, 2019. Happy Festivus. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show we cover the latest Macintosh news, and this is the last show of 2019. Which usually means there's nothing to talk about. Actually, there's a surprisingly a lot of stuff to talk about. Let's say hello to iMore's. I could go either way, couldn't it? All right, iMore's Renee Ritchie. iMore's Renee Ritchie from Vector, imore.com/Vector, and Montreal. Hello, Renee. Oh, you've got the new Apple TV screensavers, the underwater screensaver running on your TV back there. Isn't that pretty?
Yeah, I needed some jellyfish because it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas here, Leo. Yeah, everywhere I go.
Tropics. Is it snowing out there?
It's not snowing right now, but we have snow. The ground is covered in snow and ice.
Well, good news. Your colleague at iMore, Lori Gill, managing editor there, has cookies.
Yep.
And
got cookies for everyone.
Look at this. She brought cookies. Wow.
Lots of going to fall off the plate.
All different kind of cookies. Wow, that looks good. Oh, man. And she's
Happy
wearing
holidays.
Candy cane headband. And you've adjusted your shot. I like it so that the candy canes fit.
My candy canes are straight, but my wall is crooked, so you guys figure it out.
Something's distorted. Hello, Lori. Also
Hi.
joining us, he's wearing his Star Wars shirt in honor of
just it being a cool shirt and my not wearing it as much as I would like.
Can you believe it's the 42nd anniversary? It took him 42 years to complete the trilogy, the triple trilogy.
The first three trilogies.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Well, some might say they've hardly completed it, but this is no spoilers.
So, I mean, that's Andy Nako, by the way. Hi. Boston
That's
Public
the Star
Radio's
Wars guy.
Henry. Yeah, the Star Wars guy. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. We're going to go see it Christmas Eve. Carson's not seeing it till his birthday on the 29th. So no spoilers
No
on
spoilers.
this show. No spoilers.
I did love it, though. I'm not going to spoil it, but I did love it.
I watched last night.
Andy seems salty about it.
Lori loved it, too. So.
I like it.
I have a very strong opinion that if you like Star Wars movies, then you don't even get my opinion until after you've seen it. So I'm keeping my mouth shut.
Oh, all right. Okay.
I won't even tell you whether I like it or not.
I have to say, I rewatched The Last Jedi just to get up to date. And I'm glad I did, because I forgot a lot of it. It was a whole, 2 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. So I forgot a lot of it. But now
you can watch the pitch meetings, Leo. I was sending those to Lori. It's a guy who plays himself against a green screen, pitching it as the writer and the producer.
Oh, how
and they
funny.
just bring out everything that's wrong with it, but in the most hilarious way possible.
Oh, how
and
funny.
all of them, even like the good ones, like Empire and like Star Wars, are hilarious.
Oh, I'll watch it.
If you have time.
Yeah, which, by the way, all of his are good. He doesn't just do Star Wars. He does a bunch of different movies, and he is hilarious. You got to check that guy's stuff out.
I can't play anything from YouTube ever again.
That's true.
Is it the Screen Rant pitch meetings?
Yes.
Is that it? Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
I can't play it because I played something from YouTube on our holiday special Twit, and they pulled it down. So we had to re-edit it. And because the problem is it's fair use. It's commentary on something.
Yeah.
And so I know it's completely legal. It's copyright safe because it's fair use. But the process to appeal it takes so long, it doesn't matter. After 10 weeks, we get it back up. But by then, the show is so dated, we've lost all the views anyway. So this is the chilling effect of copyright law and takedowns on YouTube. So I will no longer be showing, right, Carson? We just shouldn't show anything.
Yeah.
No clips of anything. Carson had to work late last
Very
night
sad.
because he had to edit it out, and Kevin had to come in and edit it out.
No. That's the permanent truth is that moderation of content is not scalable, and so whoever runs this service is always going to do whatever answer is gets them in the least amount of trouble and costs the least amount of effort. So my difficulty is that all these content companies understand that there is probably very, very little chance that someone reversing a content strike. So you may as well just automatically strike everything. And now there are, you get situations where, like, if I create a viral video or any type of content, and then CBS News does, hey, today in tech, and they they run 5 seconds of it, then the automatic content moderator at CBS will content claim my stuff,
right,
and say that the stuff that they stole it from is now theirs, and now I have to fight to get my monetization back.
We got content claimed on something starring Leo.
Really?
Yes, it was a G4 clip.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It was.
I was in it, but that didn't. Yeah. Patrick, it was me and Patrick Norton, but it didn't.
There
matter.
was I forget the guy's name, but he went and added his theme song to iTunes using CD Baby, and now whenever a video is claimed, he claims it as well, and that way it stays up, and he gets part of the revenue while he's fighting it.
Oh, maybe
which
that's
is absurd, but apparently it works.
I should go counterclaim the G4 clip.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because I'm in it.
Yep.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yep.
This sounds terrible. I don't like this.
It is terrible.
I quit. I don't like this world.
Well, so basically, I quit. Even though this show, the entire premise of all the shows we do on Twit, we don't do any original journalism. It's commentary on other people's work. That's the nature of what we're doing. It's a commentary show. So, I guess ultimately we'd have no show at all if we cut out everything we're talking about. But fortunately, that hasn't propagated past YouTube. So we just won't show any more clips or music or anything fun.
Damn it, YouTube had one job.
Bah humbug. I do have to say, I broke down and ordered AirPods Pro because of this article, and it's not going to come for a month. They're still a month out. Stephen
Some
Coyle.
stores are getting them in stock. If you find a local store, they might have some in stock.
Okay, that's always a good tip. All right, so I ordered them on the Apple site, but I ordered them engraved. I always engrave my AirPods because not for any vanity purposes, but just because it's so easy to lose, or so easy to borrow.
Micah, whose AirPods are those?
So easy to borrow. So it says Leo Laporte's iPods, hands off. But these pros, so this is Stephen Coyle, who published an article on his blog, and actually I should show his blog, talking about AirPods Pro Bluetooth latency. So explain to me why latency is even an issue. What is that even? What are we talking about, Renee?
So it depends on who you are. So, for example, if you're the biggest example is accessibility. If you're using these for voiceover or any kind of work that requires this to be your whole world, and there's a latency involved, and that is incredibly disturbing, sometimes to the point where it's not usable for you. And that's why a lot of people had apprehension around the original AirPods. Also for gaming,
Bluetooth has inherently, because it's a radio technology, some built-in latency.
Yeah, so it's just slightly off from when it should be synced up.
So that matters if you're playing a game.
Yep.
Because the pew pew will come just slightly after you fire the gun. If you're typing and there's key clicks, there's a lot of things you might do where that latency, if you notice it, could be disturbing. But mostly matters if you're a music producer, right? Which I gather Coyle is, because that's especially if you're doing live performance, the synchronization is kind of critical.
I have never met anybody who records audio that uses Bluetooth headphones.
Yeah.
That's unheard of.
Yeah.
They're always plugged in, which is really annoying when you're recording music and you're wearing headphones that have a 20-foot cord.
So
I like the idea of being able to use Bluetooth, because that would be amazing to have to be not wired to the soundboard.
He used some pretty sophisticated tools to measure latency and came up with a really encouraging result. Now, the far right bar, if you're looking at the video, is just a speaker connected to the device. And even that has something like 70 milliseconds of latency. It's not zero. And I think you can notice latency of 15 or 20 milliseconds. So it might even be noticeable to you. But look at the AirPods 1. They had latency at 274 milliseconds. Second generation went to 178 milliseconds. The AirPod Pro, 144 milliseconds, and that's significantly better than Beats Studio 3 or the Sony WH-CH700N. In fact, the only thing beating it is a directly connected device speaker. So for Bluetooth headphones, that's quite good. Although you're right, Lori, you still wouldn't want to mix or record, I guess would be more important with Bluetooth headphones on of any kind.
It's that H1 chip, Leo.
It's the H. It's the H, not the W now, is the H.
The W moved to Apple Watch and became the the W2 became the Apple Watch's wireless chip. And then they made a dedicated H series, and the H1 is the first one. It's got 8 audio cores, but the AirPods Pro is the only one that's using all 8 of them so far.
So that convinced me I should probably get the AirPods Pro. I know you guys love them. The fit's better, right? And,
wearing them right now.
And the noise cancellation's good. I don't think they're probably sound-wise as good as some higher-end headphones, but...
No, they still suffer from a little bit of the, just too tinny, too high-end sounding. Yeah. But they're absolutely fantastic for everyday use, especially for conversations like this. Like Renee and I, we wear them
you're both wearing
all the time.
Wow.
They're so comfortable. I just cannot believe how much more comfortable they are than the AirPods. Yeah. And just in general, how much more comfortable they are than any earbuds I've ever used. It's kind of amazing how comfortable they are. And I do also wear them when I'm walking down the street. I will switch to my Powerbeats Pro when I want to focus on music because it's just a better sound. It has a deeper warmth sound. But if I'm listening to podcasts or audiobooks or even just casually listening to music and not really trying to focus in on the music, I'll listen to the AirPods for that.
Yeah. Somebody's mentioning the Bose Quiet Comfort 35 Mark II. I use the QC35s on airplanes because of the noise cancellation. They're similar in air, but they're wired. And he says on the QC35 too, I guess they are not wired, they're Bluetooth. The delay is a killer when he watches TV. You can really notice it. So, yeah. Coil makes an app, a music rhythm app called Tapt, T-A-P-T. So that's part of the reason why he cares a lot about this, because you're tapping to test your rhythm. So any latency is going to make it harder to play. Well, that's good news. Thought I'd start with some good news. There's other news. This is also, I think, good news, but I'd love to know what you think. This broke the day after the show last week, and that stunned me. Apple, Google, and Amazon got together with the Zigbee Alliance to create Project Chip, the connected home over IP, an open standard, the last thing I would have ever thought for home automation. So even though Apple, Google, and Amazon are kind of deeply in competition in this space, I think they decided it would be better for everybody if stuff interoperated.
It's a cool acronym. Yeah. You got to use a cool acronym if you can come up with one.
Yeah. Well, and what is also great is Z-Wave then responded by doing the same thing. They said, well, okay, we'll open our technology as well. So is it a brave new world? Is it a bold new horizon for home automation? Is this going to transform everything?
Yeah, I'd say so, because we go into each other's homes and we see that everyone's using smart bulbs and smart appliances and smart devices, but it hasn't penetrated quite so well with the people who are they just want a light bulb, or they just want a speaker, they just want something to work. And part of it is because, well, first you have to set up this hub, and then you have to set up this phone app, and then you have to make sure that you've got these all in the same network, and then you've got to make sure that these are actually compatible with each other. Oh wait, you bought the wrong kind of plug adapter, better return those and look for kinds that have these kind of certifications on them. The ability for one device to talk directly to another device will just simply say, if this has got this, just look for the Underwriter's Laboratory logo on it. You know that you're safe. You know that you're good. So yeah, it's a case of them chasing after people that they still have their money in their pockets, but they haven't actually given them to a maker of home automation products yet.
Yeah. Well, and I may not be as sanguine as you about the future of it, just because you've got, as with any industry consortium trying to work on a unified standard, you're going to have all these companies come in and say, well, no, you can't do that, or you can't do that. But they
couldn't use Apple's logo. They had to use a fake version of Apple's logo.
Yeah, can't do that. That doesn't bode well for eventual, comity. However, on the other hand, there's a lot of economic pressure to do this, because right now you go to buy a smart lock, And the first thing you got to figure out is this going to work with my Google device or my Echo, or is it going to work with my HomePod? What is it going to work with? And that's not a good consumer experience. So I think there's a lot of pressure to do this.
It'll also open up competition and opportunities for people who are just writing software to run all these sort of things.
Yeah, which is what terrifies Apple and Google and Amazon. They don't want other people involved.
But I was also reading the spec and trying to answer the question for myself: how many opportunities does this create for a company, let's say like Facebook, that would like to, if the app wants to see I want to map your entire house and see exactly what devices are everywhere without having to implement 8 or 9 or 10 or 11 different protocols. So, yeah.
It would be really nice.
Oh, Andy, you just creeped me out.
I know. I'm just breaking everything in my house. Thank you, Andy.
It's a consumer dream, though, to be able to say, I can decide which of these assistants and voice things I want to use, and everything in my house will work with it is awesome.
And mix and match them.
And mix and match.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you don't want to just say, oh, well, and that's why I think I'm a little suspect, because, I mean, the whole point for Google at this point was, you have to buy all Google devices and then they'll all work together, or Apple or Amazon.
I think it was more along the lines of it's the only way to get all these things to work together.
I think you're right.
And not to downplay Google buying an entire company just to make sure that they could sell everything in one package, but really, if you want to provide a service to your customers and they're not going to return it in 2 weeks because they still haven't gotten everything working together, it's easier if you say, well, just have your Nest speaker talk to your Nest thermostat in reaction to your Nest doorbell going off. So
that's what I ended up doing. I put Google Home Hubs everywhere, Nest Home Hubs. I changed my Ring doorbell for a Hello doorbell. It all works nicely. Somebody rings my doorbell, my Home Hub immediately puts a picture up on the screen of who's at the doorbell. If it recognizes them, if it has face recognition built in, and it recognizes them, it'll say, Michael's at the front door. And it tells me, announces it out loud. I love that. I think that's all of that is great, and I would love.
That's exactly what doesn't work for a lot of the average consumers.
Well, you have to buy all the same stuff.
And they don't know that. So they buy different brands and they don't understand why that's working. And this is an opportunity to correct that mistake and let the average consumer have that same experience that we're having with all of our connected stuff without having to be, IT people. Because there's a lot of people who don't understand what does it mean to be HomeKit compatible, what does it mean to be Alexa compatible or Amazon compatible. So this is it's a good opportunity to equal the playing field and let everyone participate. But Andy's comment does kind of freak me out a little bit. It's like who gets their hands on this data?
Well, Lori, everybody does. It's an alliance.
That doesn't make me feel better.
Information wants to be free, Lori.
Yeah. Stop trying to hide what you're doing, let everybody know.
It's not like there's a variety of totalitarian governments who just love to interrogate you one day based off of your social
We're going to get to that in a second. But first, Apple says they're going to, as part of this chip alliance, they're going to open source parts of HomeKit.
Yeah.
There's the opportunity, right?
I want more HomeKit compatible devices, so I like this idea a lot.
Right.
And everyone else was buying all of them. Like Apple hasn't really bought anybody, but between Google and Amazon and Samsung, they've bought up most of the big brands in the industry, and they were not exactly prioritizing HomeKit compatibility as one of their roadmaps.
Well, maybe that's Apple's incentive. Isn't it always the case that the guy who's laggard, who's behind, when Windows was dominant, Macs had to make sure that they worked with Windows stuff. When you're not the dominant player in the industry, you try to work with the other folks. So maybe that's one of Apple's incentives.
Yeah. Well, even I have my ear to the ground as much as anybody else, and even I'm occasionally confused as to what Apple means by HomeKit. When Apple points at something and calls this HomeKit, I turn and I don't know what I'm going to see. So it's a good saving role for Apple, definitely.
Why? So did I ask this last week? Why doesn't Apple have a device with a screen? Amazon and Google both do.
They're missing so many. Like they don't have they don't have a mini home pod. They don't have their own locks. They don't have their own. For a privacy-focused company, they don't have their own router, like one of the most important connections in your house, and they stopped making them. So the whole thing is flabbergasting to me.
Yeah, I'll say it again. That one of the best moves Apple could make is to get into create a home security camera or home monitor camera. Create all that stuff where, as much as some people like myself trust with a lowercase t, trust Google. If Apple created a camera, oh boy, would I immediately take off all these Nest cameras. Okay, my one Nest camera, but replace it with an Apple camera.
So you were mentioning spy apps. Turns out that there is an app that millions have downloaded called ToTok, not TikTok, ToTok. It's a messaging app that has built-in video and voice calling. A New York Times investigation, as well as a intelligence assessment from the U.S. intelligence community, discovered that it's actually a spy tool. It's used by a government, the United Arab Emirates, and can track every conversation, every movement, every relationship, every appointment, every sound, every image of people who install it in their phones. It was only put out a few months ago. Millions of downloads on the Apple and Google app stores, not just by people in the UAE, but by people all over the world. I'm sure that if the UAE created this with that intent, it was really to spy on people in the UAE as opposed to people in the US. But who knows? It was one of the most downloaded social apps in the US last week. Apple has pulled it off the App Store, so has Google. Talk about stuff you don't want in your house, Lori.
But then pulling that off the App Store doesn't actually get it off people's phones, though, right? So the message it needs to be sent out to everyone who downloaded it too. Yeah, that's kind of scary. That's every time a new social service comes out, that's kind of the fear that you walk into is this something I can trust? And a lot of times it's fine, and there's nobody in the background trying to steal any information, even though you have to give access to a keyboard or you have to allow them to use your camera or something like that. But when something like this comes up, it definitely scares me and reminds me that we're giving away a lot when we even to known services that are not nefarious, like that they have the ability to access that as soon as we agree to it, and they're not using it. But who's to say that that's not going to change someday? That's where I have a lot of that kind of fear, that future fear of, Big Brother watching, of like right now they're not doing it, but they can do it because we gave them permission to, because we had to in order to use it.
There was this chilling video this week too of someone in China being interrogated, like basically chained to this giant metal bathtub overcoat thing, and they were saying, why did you complain about the police taking motorcycles? We saw you on WeChat. We know that you complained about it. And he's like, oh, I'm drunk. He goes, oh, drunk is your excuse. You should apologize. And they had his entire everything about him, and they knew everything, where he was, when he was, and he had to like tape an apology to everybody. And it was just, we're always just a couple steps away from that, and you never really know what's going to happen until it does.
Yeah, and these are all going to become more of national politics issues. Department of Defense just last week advised everybody in the Department of Defense, if you have the TikTok app installed in your phone, remove it right now. And if you haven't installed it yet, don't install it in the future, because there's still the security agencies are still trying to figure out, is TikTok really a piece of spyware? Is there anything? Is the Chinese government using it as a potential surveillance tool? Or is it just simply a potential that because it's an app on a phone, just like any country could put any country's programmers could write any app for any phone, you could use that to figure out where people are where users are located, how they're moving. And this is not about China. This is not about Turkey. This is not about specific countries. This is a threat to pretty much any citizen who has a phone in their pocket. If New York Times did that wonderful piece that, first part of a series of of articles a few days ago that really just explained that you don't need to have a totalitarian government that is infecting every phone with a piece of mandatory government-created spyware. You can just simply buy information from companies that are legally scraping it from all of our movements. They decided to see how far they could track just individuals, people in the military, people who work in Washington, people who work in government, and they're just leaving so many breadcrumbs behind simply by virtue of the fact that, like everybody, you have a phone with you. That it's ridiculous. It's not really. I don't fear if the totalitarian the totalness of the danger is not by malicious governments. It really is by industries and companies that have absolutely no laws preventing them from doing whatever they want to do.
Well, get ready.
We got a warning about the Canadian border because for some reason they've granted America like absolute rights inside of Canada. So if you're in an airport, you can no longer decide not to go to America. You can no longer leave. They can arrest you. They can detain you. They can go through your Twitter, go through your Facebook. And there's like low-key panic about like just crossing into the U.S. border now, which used to be the friendliest, longest, most unprotected border in the world. And the world changes like that.
Going into Canada has always been tough. So it goes both ways.
But you used to be able to leave, and now they're trying to stop you. Like if you're an American and you were going into Canada or vice versa, you could say, I changed my mind, I'm not going in, and they had to let you go. And that's apparently no longer true.
More, yeah. Here's another scary point of information. According to the New York Times, they hired Patrick Wardle, who's great. In fact, remember that name because my pick of the week this week comes from Patrick Wardle. He's a former NSA hacker. He's a private security researcher. He also writes great Mac software. And he did a forensic analysis of ToTok, and guess what? It's basically a copy of a Chinese messaging app called YeCall, slightly customized for English and Arabic audiences. So they didn't even have to write a custom app. They could take an existing app offered by a Chinese company, modify it slightly, and put it out. So I wonder, can you still download YeCall? This is a really interesting issue. I mean, we are carrying in our pockets with our smartphones an amazing surveillance device. And if you look at the amount of information that ToTok collected, it's everything.
I keep trying to figure out ways in which I can get by throughout the days, particularly if I'm not outside, if I'm leaving my house, and not have my phone actually turned on. I've been thinking about, for other reasons, buying a lossless MP3 player, lossless digital audio player, for a lot of reasons, but now that's another reason. Like, well, if I had a separate device that doesn't have Wi-Fi, doesn't have Bluetooth, doesn't have a cellular chip, and it's just there to play 200 gigabytes of my music, that means that if I'm really going all over the place today, I can turn off my phone and only turn it back on again when I'm at like a really big public place, because it's hard to come up with an opinion that doesn't sound completely paranoid, and B, isn't actually a really smart thing to think about, because it really is that bad. This, again, I say, with no regulations whatsoever, no one will ever go to jail for tracking the vice president via his phone, no matter where he goes. It is the responsibility of the people around him to shut down cell service and shut down cell towers. And even then, all you have to do is have someone with a Wi-Fi. Anyway, there's no laws against doing whatever you want with whatever you can get throughout the air. And that is terrible.
There is one positive note on this story, which is that this is a relatively recent app and they got caught right away. And I think that points to the fact that people are much more aware than they used to be. And there are a lot of people looking at apps to see what's exfiltrated. And so it's encouraging to me that they got caught.
But the TikTok adoption rate was astronomical before anyone even really talked about it.
Yeah, ToTok, yeah.
Well, no, I mean, but TikTok is still a phenomenon, and people had never really had that discussion until much later.
I got to presume that Patrick Wardle and others and the CIA are paying attention to TikTok as well, and if it exfiltrated all that information, that we would know about it. By the way, ByteDance, the parent company, is looking for headquarters outside of China because of this scrutiny. They don't want to be perceived as a Chinese company. So
Yep.
they still will be, and they still would be beholden to China, but they'd like to move their world headquarters out of China, I guess.
Yeah. Imagine how frustrated the Attorney General's office and other and law enforcement in the United States are, where they're having to fight tooth and nail and have this multi-year long strategy just to have the ability to request through a court access to encrypted data on a phone. And meanwhile, they see across the ocean, here are governments that are actually putting regular surveillance apps into play. Here are governments that are actually putting requirements that you have to have this app installed. You can't have new rules that say that if you buy a phone within our territorial borders, it has to come pre-installed with Russian-made apps. And it's like, but we know this person is doing evil things and hurting people. We have his phone, and you're telling me that we can't get into the encrypted contents of this. Meanwhile, this other. And that this is why they want that kind of power, because it really is powerful stuff. Whether you are on the side of the angels, again, trying to keep people safe and solve horrifying crimes, or if you are just simply saying, hey, you know what? It would really make things easier for us if everybody was required to use an app that tracks their location and looks at everything that they type in with the keyboard for certain key phrases and sends transcripts to us on a minute-by-minute basis. Wouldn't that be convenient for us?
There's been a lot of criticism of Elon Musk's plan to launch 12,000 satellites.
Yeah, Jesus, 12. Yeah, it's an up to.
I think over 40,000 total.
Yeah, and
he's got
already
approval for the first 12,000. He's already launched 160. This is part of his attempt to wire the world, global internet via Starlink. He's not alone. Jeff Bezos is doing the same thing. And maybe Apple is planning something similar. Mark Gurman's story in Bloomberg. Apple has secret team working on satellites to beam data to devices. I'm not sure Mark's interpreting the information correctly. Apple, he says, has about a dozen engineers from the aerospace, satellite, and antenna design industries working on the project with the goal of deploying the results within 5 years. I'm wondering, though, if Apple's planning on launching satellites, which he seems to imply, or they just want to be ready when Starlink and Jeff Bezos' effort and other efforts come to fruition so that their phones can be satellite ready.
I don't know what to make of this. It's such an inefficient way to get data to a phone. We're talking about the latency of just simply Bluetooth headphones. Now think about the latency of a signal that has to go from a base station up to a satellite, then down to a phone again. I mean, there's a reason why
Starlink's latency, according to Musk, is very low because they're low Earth orbit. They're not as far as all that. I think he was claiming latency comparable to terrestrial internet.
He's also saying that we could just get everywhere by digging tunnels and putting our cars on rails.
He's ruined his credibility, I understand.
And it's also a problem of you can't just keep throwing huge constellations of satellites in orbit. You can't do that. There was already a problem where I'm trying to remember the details. Earlier this year, there was a traffic problem with one of his test satellites that it was about to collide with another satellite. One of them said, and there was because a traffic email between some military board to the Starlink people running that desk was ignored or misfiled or sent to somebody's inbox. It didn't go somewhere. You almost had a major collision, and this has been prompting a desire to say we need to have some sort of automated traffic control system, or at least some sort of a system that can automatically negotiate between two different constellations to say, no, you get out of the way. No, you get out of the way. No, I have the right of way. So you're going to have to waste some of your propellant in order to move.
Well, Musk is claiming on the Starlink site that they have autonomous collision avoidance. They're using DoD tracking to autonomously maneuver to avoid collisions.
It's not autopilot?
Yeah, practically with space debris and other spacecraft. It's too bad that Elon has kind of hurt his credibility long term because you have to take everything now that they say with a grain of salt. But that's clearly something that would have to be solved if you're going to have what would triple the number of satellites in orbit over the next few years. But nevertheless, he's got FCC approval to launch the first 12,000. He says he's going to do it. It'll be operational in 2021. And so it would make sense for Apple, if this thing's going to be up there, you'd need a specialized receiver. It would be sensible for Apple to start looking at, well, what do you need to put into an iPhone?
We want everybody to put up satellites. We didn't even let everybody put copper. We allowed copper monopolies, and we're going to let everybody just throw up any satellites they want.
Well, so far, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's
that's how it always starts.
Yeah,
it's always open until they regulate it.
Yeah,
there was that Chris Kazak's video about how we put enough stuff in space, we theoretically just lock ourselves in here because you can never leave orbit without being shot by 1 billion particles.
Yeah. If there's also he's also promising that we're gonna come up with a new sort of anti-reflective coating, because now all these objects in the air are contaminating astronomical. I'm sorry, I've been speaking way too much today. Astronomical viewings. It's not a trivial thing, and I don't think it's something where just because I'm a crazy billionaire, I can put satellites in orbit in that kind of quantity without coordinating with all the people who are on the planet underneath them who might be affected by that, and who might not be able to.
I honestly want him to do it. I think having gigabit internet with latency under 50 milliseconds on every corner of the planet is kind of transformational technology, much in the same way the internet is transformational technology. And, astronomers have ways of getting around it and looking around it. Right now, I was reading an article by an amateur astronomer who says, we typically do long exposures. We'll do many over a night because we're going to get satellite trails in some of them.
Okay.
And so we do many, and we throw out the ones that have big, long streaks of light from satellites. Yeah. Now, I would hope that they'd be able to still get some. Nevertheless, this. Don't you agree, Andy? I mean, I'm being completely selfish because I would like to be able to go anywhere in the world and still do this show.
I think I'm absolutely with you, and plus it addresses a lot of problems where you have parts of this country and parts of the world that are completely underserved by internet access, a quality, stable internet access. How the problem is that I do liken it to radio transmissions. I do liken it to the GPS constellations, where at some point a government had to step in, linking in with worldwide governments to understand that, okay, you can't, just because you think that you have a great idea as a company for a product that involves blasting out 10,000 watts of signal, well, you have to play nice with everybody else who also wants to use the radio spectrum. So we're going to make sure that everyone's compartmentalized and that you're not going to affect other things. Well,
that's why he got permission to do this from the FCC. I mean, he's got regulator approval.
Right, but there is no international body that's basically saying no, you can't put something into an orbit. But what I want to say about GPS though is that GPS is we put this constellation to orbit, and essentially no one organization is really owning and profiting from it. So it really is a worldwide resource at this point, and so when you come to the point of we're going to create a global internet access. The implications for untidy things happening for other people who want to innovate and other people who want to create, it makes me nervous about one big huge company deciding, no, we're gonna put tens of thousands of conceivably multiple tens of thousands of objects in low Earth orbit. Each one of us, because now we want to compete with Elon Musk, so we're going to put our own 10,000 satellite constellation. Well, no, we want to put our own 20,000 satellite constellation in there, and it's all basically polluting this area in which we don't have very much of it. It can screw up communications for everybody if it all goes wrong, and it really is being mitigated only by how much money somebody has to invest in this kind of a problem. I don't think it's a terrible idea. I'm just saying that. Especially when Elon Musk's name is attached to something. He's the person who decided to call something autopilot when it was, if you think of it as autopilot on these cars, it's incredibly dangerous. You cannot think of it as autopilot. I don't think he's in his fitted black t-shirt era of tech stardom. I don't think he has hung on to the idea that you can't just simply say this is a great idea, let's break things, let's do this. You have to really play nice with all the other kids in the pool.
Renee, do you think Apple wants to launch satellites, or is it I mean, this is unclear in the Gurman article.
Yeah, and I believe there's been reporting on this before, and maybe even by Mark. That Apple, again, is $1 billion company. Anything that we can think of in podcasts or YouTube videos, they can put a couple $1 million behind. This doesn't sound like a big enough team to actually be constructing wide-scale satellite deployments, but it probably is one that's keeping their eye on whether they need to do the technology. It's the same with the car. Like when you look at what they do with the car, can we partner? What parts do we have to do ourselves? What's the most important part? Use this team, downsize, get another team, downsize, get another team. If we could see the sausage made before the iPhone, you probably would have never thought the iPhone would have come out, like two different projects, people leaving, people coming in. And it seems like this is just very early stage to either do their own if they have to, or like you said, Leo, partnering if that turns out to be the best solution and it's actually a viable system.
Lori?
I think some of the things that Andy's talking about kind of hint to me at this idea of who owns that and what are they going to do with it in the future. So, if Elon Musk populates the galaxy with a bunch of satellites and that's it, and the FCC says, well, there's too many now, so we're stopping here. Then what happens? Then that's one company that's in charge of that. And is that privatizing the global internet at that point, which I think there's already conversation going on about regulating the internet and privatizing it and things like that. And this World Wide Web that has been so open since it started is not as open as it used to be. And is this just another step in the direction of privatizing the internet, which is what happened with radio and television, is that it used to be open and then it became privately owned. And now I can't just go start a radio station because it just doesn't work like that anymore. So to me, like the fear I have is that how much more locked down does the internet get when one corporation has just launched, 30,000 satellites into our atmosphere?
I would like to just point out to all you haters that Elon Musk has released all of Tesla's patents.
Yes. From day one, that was always the grand strategy of Tesla, was to get everybody creating electric vehicles. And I really honored him for that. I think it's only been in the last few years Elon's kind of sounded a little nutty.
Like I said, when a CEO moves from just the schlubby stuff that he or she used to wear to getting expensive $1,000 fitted black T-shirts, you've got to start to worry, because that's when they start saying, what if every dog and cat weren't just a dog and a cat?
He just released all of Tesla's patents.
Thank you.
And to speak to Karsten, I don't actually mean specifically Elon Musk. I mean, in general, I have,
it's going to be Musk or it's going to be Bezos.
About.
Bezos is launching 3,000 satellites, right? So
right. So it's any single company
Why do you hate
owning
the
it all.
Future?
Because it's scary.
It's
scary. Yeah, like all of those sci-fi books are coming. They're not coming true, but they're leading down that path.
Future is here, people. Come on.
I just want to.
Well, Karsten, I know that you're enjoying that barcode tattoo that your corporate masters have put in invisible ink.
Can we set up Karsten Cam? He's a disembodied voice, but on Sunday we figured out a whole new way.
We don't have enough inputs on this show.
He doesn't want the Karsten Cam. He doesn't want it. I ask you, what are you hiding, Karsten? What?
And when are you hiding it?
Speaking of Amazon, and this has nothing to do with Apple.
The man behind the curtain.
But there he is. There he is. He's in blue.
Yes.
He's in blue. It's not Alex Lindsay, but other than that, it's perfect.
Why
are we're pretending he's Alex? That's what we're doing. Yeah.
I think that the Morton Thiokol Corporation has requested that he not be ever his face be shown. Therefore, he can infiltrate more shows.
Hey, I just want to point out, we were speaking of Amazon, this hysterical story from Bloomberg today. You remember in the Democratic debate, if you watched it, that both Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren trashed Amazon for not paying any taxes. It turns out that they may not like Amazon, but Bernie has spent more than $250,000 on Amazon office supplies on Amazon this year. Elizabeth Warren, $151,000. Apparently, they all get their office supplies. Even Trump has spent $37,000. Yeah, it's so easy. Get your office supplies on Amazon.
My follow-up question to that is: are they properly paying taxes on things that aren't taxed to them? Because in California, we have to pay taxes on purchases we make from Amazon if if we weren't taxed by California for it. So are they adhering to their own tax policies on that? And not to badmouth anybody, but when you stand on your soapbox, you got to be careful what you're saying.
You got to be careful when you stand on a soapbox. I think that's very good. Speaking of soapboxes, Walt Mossberg, who for most of this decade had the best soapbox in the world at the Wall Street Journal and then the Recode, he is back after retirement. He is back with an article on The Verge talking about the decade. The headline, Tim Cook's Apple had a great decade, but no new blockbusters. He does start, of course, with 2010. The iPad was announced exactly 10 years ago next month, January 2010, and it's been an amazing decade. He then talks, of course, about Steve Jobs passing away the next year, which was a huge shift. That's when Tim Cook became CEO. The MacBook Air redesign of 2010, the iPhone 4 of that year, Cook's first big all-new product, the Apple Watch in 2015. I think you can safely say that it is a success today, a $5 billion
bigger than iPod ever was.
Business. Yeah. AirPods, a $4 billion a quarter business, came out in 2016.
Maybe also bigger than iPods now, according to Neil Steinberg's numbers.
So, it's always tough to quantify what is innovation versus business success. I don't think you can say at all that Tim Cook hasn't been anything but completely successful at Apple.
There's a couple issues there. Like, one is that Tim Cook was the reason for a lot of the early successes too, because there's that famous story. It's only Steve Jobs could make an iPad, but only Tim Cook could get the manufacturer price down to $500.
Yeah.
He was the COO, effectively the CEO and the co-CEO, because Steve Jobs wanted nothing of quarterly calls and things like that in the early years. Cook always did a lot of the tasks. But the other thing is that a lot of the stuff gets measured to the iPhone, and it's not an iPhone level success. But if you look at products in general, there's nothing that is an iPhone level success. So if that's the barometer for everybody, it's been a hella depressing decade. But I would argue that the iPhone is an anomaly. And if you throw out the best product and the worst product, there's been a lot of interesting stuff from a lot of companies this decade.
There you go. Privacy, we can't deny it, has been a big and successful play for Apple in the last few years anyway. I think, it depends what you call a success. Absolutely, the Apple Watch and AirPods, both of which are Tim Cook products, have been hugely successful. On the other hand, it was the butterfly keyboard that came out under Tim Cook.
I would also argue that the Apple Watch is, in my opinion, of course, not being, one of the analysts of the future or, the business insiders or anything, but Apple Watch is the most innovative product to come out at all, if for nothing else but the life-saving benefits that it has. When you read all these articles about people who fell off cliffs or had a heart attack or, had a seizure and would have died, or they had their Apple Watch recognized something unusual in their heartbeat, and they are now they got early treatment for something that their doctor never would have caught. To me, that is way more innovative than any phone. No phone ever saved anybody's life. No tablet ever saved anybody's life. But the Apple Watch has literally saved people's lives by just
Lori.
Being on their wrist.
I think there are cases of iPhones stopping bullets in people's pockets. I don't. There have been some
Leo.
Okay, so I'll give you that.
No, you're right. I think the watch is actually absolutely significant, as are the AirPods. And I think, Renee, you're right. You're not going to have, very few companies ever have one iPhone. It seems so unlikely that you'd have anything even close to that successful.
It made more money than fossil fuel. People had oligopoly control over fossil fuel resources.
Nevertheless, Cook has been a very good steward of the iPhone and an extremely good steward of Apple. Mossberg writes at the end, Apple remains what it has been for many years, the single most important consumer tech hardware company. And maybe software too, if you look at Mac OS and iOS. A major force not only in its industry, but in society at large. And now it is huge and rich to boot. And again, credit to Mr. Cook, but it's still unclear if it could be anybody's favorite music provider, TV network, or news service. He's referring to Apple's move to services, I guess. I'm not going to bet against them on that one. Or if it can launch another blockbuster device. Well, I would say it has launched at least two, maybe three blockbuster devices in this decade. Nothing like the iPhone,
iPad, the Apple Watch, the AirPods are all fair game this decade.
And by the way, all three made it to Time Magazine's top 10 devices of the decade. So,
and the morning show finale was amazing.
What do you think of that? Okay, now.
So good.
Now let's get down to the real
I still didn't watch it.
Oh, we can't say anything then.
No spoilers, but it was so good.
Yeah, I still have, to me, that morning show, there's something wrong with the writing. I mean, they've got a great cast. It's beautifully shot. There's something to me that just didn't quite click with the writing. I thought, if the producers of Billions, for instance, or Succession had gotten their hands on that material, I think they would have done a better job. But you're right. It's worth watching all 9 episodes. Is it 10 total? For the 10th episode. Because that, woo!
That's really interesting because now I think that every streaming company has to, when they get a new series, they kind of have to get the entire season like in the bag and then watch them all, because on a show like The Mandalorian, you absolutely don't want to release them all in one big blob. You want, there's so many little revelations and so much strength to strength to strength week to week that you're going to build week after week. On a show like The Morning Show, it's like there are a lot of people who checked out after the second or third episode, whereas if they had binge watched it, maybe they leave it running, maybe they wake up and suddenly, wait a minute, right. I don't know what's the show that's really engrossing and wonderful. Wait a minute, it's the show that I fell asleep to because it was so boring last night. Hey,
Apple kind of split the baby. They released the first 3 episodes of the new shows, enough to get you hooked, and then it goes weekly. And I have to say, I've been looking forward to Fridays because I did kind of get hooked on the morning show. I haven't finished off For All Mankind. I never watched
the last episode of that is supposed to be really good too. Like people were erupting over it on Twitter as well.
Yeah, I'm going to get back to that one now that I've finished the morning show. And unfortunately, I started The Servant, M. Night Shyamalan's, and that thing is awesome.
Yeah,
I haven't started
I've been
it
watching
yet.
that one.
And they're only 30 minutes, which is kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
They're very short, which, for sitcoms maybe, but I can't think of any dramatic show.
Well, The Mandalorian, some of the episodes are really short too, and people are wondering like what happened. And I think Favreau just said each episode is as long as it needs to be.
Why should you be an hour or 30 minutes or 22 minutes or 44 minutes? You don't have a network schedule. Yeah. You don't have advertising. You should make it exactly as long.
And I love the 8-episode seasons because there's just no room for the padded out episodes. Like there's just never a filler.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think I was a little nervous about Apple TV Plus. I think on balance, they've actually done remarkably well for the first year of a new television service with starting from
the variety.
zero.
I'm a huge, like I said before, I'm a huge Disney fan. I love Star Wars. I love Marvel. I love all those brands. But if you like Star Trek and DC, they have very little for you. Whereas Apple is like, they have everything from The Servant to Dickinson to The Morning Show to For All Mankind. And I love the variety of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, speaking of Apple's success with the iPhone, Apple earned this year 66%, 2/3 of all the profit in the smartphone market for 2019.
That seems down, doesn't it?
It seems fine to me. Samsung, number 2, 17%.
That is a huge difference.
That's global, by the way. That's not U.S. only. I think it'd be even
US,
higher.
I think it's higher.
Yeah, U.S. would be even higher.
Well, that's maybe Apple doesn't want this.
A third of the revenues. A third of the revenues total.
Why do you still? You got the wrong lower third. Fix your lower third.
Okay, I'll fix my.
You are not Alex Lindsay. Stop pretending you are. Go ahead, Andy.
No, I'm saying maybe that's not something that Apple wants people to know, that we, of all the companies making phones in the entire world, we gouge and inflate our prices more than anybody else. And when we find ways to economize, we don't lower our prices at all. We keep all that money for ourselves.
You are right, though, according to, this is data from Counterpoint, because it has to be guessed, Apple won't say. But you are right, Renee, that they were at one point up to 80% of profit. So, but the top line on this graph is Apple. All the rest are clustered at the bottom.
So the thing for me is like, I totally understand Andy's point, but I would actually like other companies to take more of that, not for Apple to learn less, but I would love for them to earn more. Like I'm still mourning HT. There's a bunch of companies that just could never sell phones for viable amounts of money to still be in business.
Well, because Apple took all the oxygen out of the atmosphere, right?
But also they cut, like the same as the App Store, they would just cut. Like I remember Palm once sold the Centro for less than cost, thinking they'd make it up in volume. And just look at Palm today. I just want them all to be viable because I want to have these companies in 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
Well, it's difficult in 2019 because we are really seeing trends of people losing their enthusiasm for spending more than $500 on a phone. So it's a lot of these companies, particularly a company like Samsung, that has the ability to. I mean, their marketing strategy is if we have 9 ideas for phones, we will make all 9 and then cancel the 7th that people didn't want. Yeah, exactly. There are two. That was 2 that was only available in South Korea, but that was such a bad idea that they just took them off the website. But yeah, it's going to get more and more difficult for companies that are not creating a luxury, a high, that are not don't have that sort of aura around their brand and don't have that sort of love from its consumers to continue to make really, really high profits, because that's why you're seeing so many great phones that cost $500, $400, or even a few that cost $300, where you're being so if you're willing to forego iOS and switch to Android, you'd be hard pressed to see where they cut corners on at least the build quality. Okay, definitely the camera, but for a lot of people, it's a very fine. It's a $300 camera, a $300 phone that they can afford. They can make with one payment, as opposed to an $800, $900 phone that they're going to have to pay month by month.
Every time I go to Walmart and I see JVC as Magnavox as licensed brands on garbage stuff, it just breaks my heart, because those were all the consumer electronics companies.
Kodak kills me. Because they're the Tecmo channel they sent him like an instant camera that I thought looked really cool, because it kind of looked like a Polaroid SX70, but it only folded a little bit. It was actually just a really weird shape. Has the Kodak branding, has the Kodak logo, and you press the button and it has a zinc ZINQC whatever printer inside, so it takes a minute to print out the picture because it has like so little processing inside it. And yeah, as somebody who like their first real camera was a Kodak 110 Instamatic, it's like, oh, that used to mean something, and they used to, every single movie used to say shot on Kodak film, and
they wrote a song.
Now you're selling now you're putting that sticker on a Bluetooth speaker. It makes me very sad.
By the time you're my age, there'll be apples on everything.
Yeah, that's true.
They'll license that Apple to everybody.
Fuji's making digital cameras that now embed all their original film profiles. I just love that. That's like the best of all universes to me.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. Yeah. Dan Morin, writing at Macworld, his Stay Foolish column, which is, by the way, the best name for a column of all time. Calling back to Steve Jobs, Stay hungry, stay foolish, which is, of course, a callback to the coda of the Whole Earth catalog. So it has a long lineage. Apple's most significant moves of 2019. Number 1, turning pro. I have to say that both the new MacBook Pro and obviously the Mac Pro are phenomenal. Just give me my escape key.
Worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, really nice. Misputs and takes, some missteps. Air Power, of course. Whatever happened to Air Power?
It's with that. It's with
the
Samsung home speaker.
It sleeps with a fish.
Together.
It was too good. Apple didn't want people to feel bad that some people had and some people didn't, because it was such a wonderful charging pad.
Dan does point out that at least Apple improved the keyboard, tacitly, they never admitted it out loud, their mistake with the butterfly keyboard. And I have to say the MacBook Pro 16-inch is in every way the sweetest machine. I just couldn't be happier with it.
Renee, are we getting a 13 or I guess 14-inch version of that? Yes. Because I want it so bad, but I don't need the 16-inch screen.
Yeah, no, they've done staggered releases for a while. Like they did. If you look at the old events, there was like, and now 6 months later, now the 13-inch version.
Do you think they're watching telemetry on the keyboards to make sure that they're reliable and people don't have problems and complaints? And
I think they still low-key love the butterfly keyboard enough that they want to keep it on a potential low-profile MacBook 12 replacement that may be in the works. I'm hoping that they realize that this keyboard is so good they should abandon.
Yeah,
they should just put it with the ET cartridges, salt the earth, and let the horses run over.
It's not a lot of travel. It's still only a millimeter of travel. It's not going to. I think you could still make a MacBook Air or even a MacBook with that.
I would love that. I want it everywhere.
Yeah. I miss my MacBook Air. I really liked it a lot, but I didn't like the butterfly keyboard. The 16 is fantastic, but I wouldn't mind a thin and light travel edition like a MacBook or a MacBook Air. I really liked the MacBook, actually, except for the keyboard. I really liked it. Service. This was the year of services, says Dan Morin, for Apple. There's no question about that. Apple TV Plus, solid hit. Apple News Plus, maybe not so much. Apple Arcade, Apple Music, definitely successes. Is Apple News Plus going to survive? It seems to be struggling.
It's only in a few countries. Like the other services all launched in 100 countries, and they just have so much momentum. And Apple News Plus, it took them years to get out of the first 3 launch countries just with Apple News. And now, because of the rights with Rogers and the U.S. companies, I think it's in 4 countries still, and they don't seem to have nailed the formula at all.
Yeah, if they can't get it rocking and rolling in the United States, they haven't figured out what they want the product to be or how to make it relevant.
There's some
I still pay for my News Plus subscription. I love reading the magazines.
It's because of the magazines, right? Yeah.
I do. Yeah. So I think it's a niche thing.
The interface is still so hard for me.
Because it's basically texture. They need to update that. Some of that is just telling the magazines, look, you can't just give us a PDF. You have to make it.
And you can't even search. Like I see an article and I go on the web and it says you've run out of your articles. You can't read it. So I type the title into Apple News and it can't find it. So I have to go to like the Wall Street Journal or the Toronto Star in Apple News. And then you can't search within Apple News. So I scroll and then the second article is 22 days old. And I just don't know what to do with my life anymore at that point.
There is good news. Digiday interviewed an unidentified magazine executive saying, we're happy to be on Apple Plus because it's another way to increase subscription revenue. It's not a huge boon for our business or anything like that. It's not really relevant. That publication claims $20,000 a month. It says that's not enough to justify it, but the gain in subscriptions is apparently just enough to keep it on the platform. So they're going to renew their contract. They didn't say which publisher. They did quote Essence, which is encouraged by how much it's increased subscriptions since joining. Probably a lot of people forgot that Essence existed. And so
the traffic is good, though. Like a lot of people have said, you get a lot of traffic from Apple News.
Yeah. By the way, the other thing Essence did right is they made it look nice on the, they didn't just send us a PDF. It looks good. In fact, they intentionally wanted to make it look like their magazine on Apple's News Plus was a native property, and I think they did a good job of that. So, the jury's still out. I'll give it the jury's still out on News Plus, but definitely now that I've seen the end of a morning show, I would say Apple TV Plus is not a home run. There was no Game of Thrones, there was no Stranger Things, but definitely a very solid first year.
I also might argue that we haven't seen the end of Servants first season. That might be.
It's really good.
Yeah, I mean that one is.
Shyamalan's got some massive twist at the end, right?
Yeah.
Has anyone seen Bruce Willis lately?
Yeah. I see dead babies. Let's see. Going into 2020, Dan Morin wrapping up. Plenty more is happening. Actually, plenty more happened in 2019. Let's not forget Catalyst. iOS 13, it was a mess for a while, but it does add some really significant features. iPad OS, huge. That came out this year, right? It didn't come out in 2012. Or 2012. What am I talking about? 2018. I think the iPhone 11 is arguably the best version. Certainly the camera is the best version ever. AirPods Pro, we just talked about that. Pretty strong.
It's my favorite iPhone since the iPhone 4. And I don't say that lightly.
I agree with you.
I love the iPhone 7 as well.
No, I agree with you. I think they it's hard in an incremental, every year is an incremental increase now. But so it's hard to do anything to make it stand out. But I think the OLED screens have really come into their own. The quality is excellent. These cameras, especially the wide.
I was watching Jonathan Morrison's HDR. He did an HDR episode to show the HDR XDR display, and I don't have an XDR display, so I watched it on the iPhone display. It is amazing when you push that thing, what it can really do in terms of brightness and contrast levels on a phone, Leo.
Yeah.
I think the iPhone 11 nothing. Even if you don't go Pro, I really think it's one of it's hard to really articulate why, but I really think that it's the coming together of a lot of long and hard work to produce a affordable premium phone that is just tens across the board. I mean, there are a lot of people. I was a little bit worried when the iPhone 10 was first released, thinking, oh man, are we going to have to now have two tiers of like the poor people and the 1%ers buying phones? But really, it really was an example of Apple charging more to really get the kinks out of certain technologies and certain manufacturing, and then figuring out a way to put everything that you would have loved, all the reasons why you lusted after an iPhone 10 when it was released, but you held off because you couldn't afford it back then, and taking it and tweaking it, making it better, and putting it into a much less expensive package. I really think that the iPhone 11 nothing is one of the best iPhones in the entire series.
And I'm using the
HomePod
Max,
didn't do well,
like
but
too.
the technology from HomePod that's in the MacBook Pro speakers and in the even the iPhone 11 speakers have spatial audio now.
Oh my God, the stereo imaging on the MacBook Pro is mind-boggling. I mean, that is the best sounding laptop ever by a long shot. It really is good.
2019 was Apple's year to nail it for almost everything.
So.
If you think about the sort
together.
of the fact that the iPhone 11 is almost exactly just as good as the Pro models is fantastic for most people who need a phone. The AirPods Pro finally made a pair of AirPods that more people can wear comfortably, that you're less likely to drop out of your ears. The 16-inch MacBook Pro has the keyboard that everybody loves. iPadOS has made the iPad very, very close to an actual
it's a new product.
Computer replacement.
This
is all in 2019. This has been a really good year for them in terms of like finally hitting that product and that software. That's exactly what everybody's looking for.
And let's not forget, there were big departures. Angela Ahrendts left. Johnny Ive left.
Yep.
The executive team was very much shaken up, but I think Apple showed that its core competencies are very, very strong. I think they... they're a mature company now. They're not going to have a new iPhone every year or even every decade. But boy, they've really doubled down on the stuff they make, and I think it's quite good. Yeah. I'm a little nervous about this notarization thing coming up next year. Starting in February, Apple has announced now, developers who create Mac apps that are not in the store will have to have them notarized. Now, they delayed this. It was going to happen with Catalina, and they said, okay, we'll put it off. But this is going to be official. Please clarify, Renee. I don't know if you've done any reporting on this. I am worried about third-party apps. Am I going to be able to open them at all, or do I have to turn off Gatekeeper, open them, and then turn it back on? What is the process going to be?
I think if you have like a naked install, like you buy a new machine and you bring it home, you'll have to do that terminal command that will bring up that allow any app to launch setting in Gatekeeper, and then you enable that.
There won't be a manual way. You can't right-click and open anymore? This is unclear.
I'm hoping... Yeah, it's unclear. I know for sure if you do that thing and it gives you the turn off Gatekeeper command and you tap that, then it doesn't care what you launch anymore. That just opts you completely out. I don't know what the right click will do because I don't have a system that enforces Gatekeeper yet.
Oh.
We might have to see. But right now it does. Right now it works.
Yeah. The right click. Yeah. So I do the right click a lot. There's some apps that I use like Joplin. The guy is not an Apple developer. He hasn't got it notarized. But I can still right-click and open it, and I do when there's an update, and they're fairly frequently updated. The nice thing about this command, and you published this in iMore with all sorts of caveats, but it uses the spctl command. You have to do it as root, and you type spctl, which is probably software protection or something like that, sp control, -- master disable, turns that off. Now, what happens is that disables Gatekeeper. But I think, as I remember, you can confirm this if I'm wrong or deny it if I'm wrong, but I think I still can go to the control panel, the system preference pane, and there are now 3 entries, right?
Yeah,
and
that's what should happen,
Yeah, so it adds that 3rd entry, just install anything anywhere. I can, even after using this command line, go back to the system preference pane, set it back to a more secure setting and leave it there. So I don't have to turn this back on.
I have feelings about this, Leo. On one hand, if you're just someone who has an iPhone and you bought a Mac and you like that's the extent of your computing like portfolio or whatever. Like there are some, like there's malware and ransomware and spy, all these threats out there, and this will just make your Mac run more like an iOS device, and you won't have to worry about those things as much. But if you're a seasoned Mac person, this stuff just grates on your soul. And I still wish, like, you can turn off SCP, you can turn off all this stuff, that there was just, and I know a lot of people get upset about this, especially security people. You could just type in like a Konami code and unlock it, and it runs the way the Mac always runs because you're an adult. And if you click on an infected link, then that was your bad, damn it. I just wish we could better balance these things so that it is like you start off with a really well protected system, but if you hate that, you can just easily and permanently turn it off and not have to worry about it.
I'm cool with the idea that you have to be sophisticated enough, at least have good enough Google foo, that you could find this terminal command, because once you execute it, this is what your security and privacy system preference pane is going to have. It's going to turn back on that third option anywhere. Now, you're not going to want to leave it there. You're going to want to put it back to App Store and identify developers, which is right. You know, once this change happens, the notarization change happens in February, I think those two will be the only option, and right-click will stop working. That's my prediction. So you will want to add this anywhere, and then you can, if you want to install something like Joplin, you can go back to anywhere. What happens if I write software in Xcode, or I create Mac OS apps all the time with a third-party tool called Dr. Racket? What happens with that? Can I mean, if I'm just creating it for my own computer, can't I run my own apps? Do I have to get them notarized?
But like it doesn't exist yet, so it's hard to tell what, like, even by like if they do it badly. One of my worst fears is always they do something unintentionally terrible.
Yeah,
and it takes like a month to fix it.
Yeah, because I mean that's a showstopper. If I'm a developer or just a hobbyist, I like to write code. I write apps. I want my apps to run. If I have to get a develop, and it's only $99, I understand. But if I have to buy a developer account, I already have one. And then submit my personal app that I'm running on my computer to Apple for notarization before I can run it, that's a showstopper. I don't think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, they have to tread a very, very careful line here, because there has to be a difference between the experience of using a Mac and the experience of using an iPad. I love the fact that I've got an iPad, and it's a pain in the butt sometimes because it locks things down and sandboxes things so carefully. But on the other hand, it's the one computer that I worry the least about, I think the least about. However, the fact that I can get away with that because I have this MacBook and I have this desktop Mac that I can do whatever I want with. And the idea that if I've got a 6-year-old camera, I have a 6-year-old camera that I still love, it works great. And if Olympus has released here's a desktop app you need in order to apply the latest firmware update, and the last time they updated that app was 4 or 5 years ago, that's going to make me angry, not at Olympus for not updating this app, but at Apple for artificially saying, no, I know that you trust Olympus, but our robot gatekeeper doesn't trust Olympus, so therefore we're not letting you run this app. You're welcome. So I agree with Renee. I love these solutions where we're not going to let somebody who doesn't know what they're doing get themselves into trouble. But if you pass this leap of faith of some kind, if you've demonstrated to yourself that, look, if you actually Googled for this, did a search for this specific issue, and then like knew how to go into the command, open a terminal window and knew how to enter a command, we're going to guess that you're responsible enough that we shouldn't nanny you quite so much. Just like on the Android phones, you can enter developer mode just by tapping the version number and a number
Perfect
of times.
Example.
7 times it says, okay, you've almost established developer mode. Keep tapping. So okay, we guess that if you know this trick, then it's okay for you to have access to these sort of features.
The quote from the Apple support document is, I think, intentionally obscure. Beginning with macOS 10.14.5, which is, by the way, we already have. Software signed with a new, this is what's weird, software signed with a new developer ID certificate and all new or updated kernel extensions must be notarized to run. That I understand. So if I don't sign it, can I open it? And that's the problem, is starting next February, if it's unsigned, it doesn't have a developer ID at all, then what do I do?
Yes.
Then what happens? Can I not open it at all? I think as long as they leave that command, that terminal command, I think that what will happen is everybody who writes software, everybody who cares, everybody who watches this show will know it, and it's a simple command. It's easy to implement.
Again, the only problem, the only thing I'm really worried about is, again, abandoned apps that are still very, very useful. It's just that whoever was developing it moved on. Example. They graduated school or they switched jobs, but it's still a really great app. It's just that
Apple knows that. There's just and there's too many developers at Apple for this to continue. Here's a kind of a funny one. You may remember the city of San Francisco, along with other cities, banned face recognition for city employees. Turns out that as a side effect you might not like. It also makes that the iPhone is banned because it uses Face ID. So the Board of Supervisors in San Francisco have quickly set to rewrite that ban. I imagine Oakland, California, and Somerville, Massachusetts, which have similar rules, will have to do the same thing. There's a face recognition ban in Brookline, Massachusetts, which was passed last week. That does have exemption for personal devices used by city officials. So I guess we're going to have to just keep that in mind now, because Face ID is a part of a lot of new phones, including the Pixel 4. I don't know if I like this or not. We talked about it on iOS Today earlier. Apple has introduced a spec for strobe accessories with the iPhone 11's flash, that work with the flash. I don't like flashes to begin with.
This is great.
That's a Lume Cube. That's the one you recommended, Andy, and I use. And it does have two modes. It has a continuous light mode as well as a strobe mode. So what? I'll connect this via my lightning port, and it'll know when to flash. Is that it?
It's a broad spec that will let you synchronize the shutter with an external illuminator, and this it's a little bit cagey on exactly how it's going to work. But the fact that they're thinking about this at all, I think, is a great thing for iPhone photography.
It does make it more of a pro product, doesn't it?
Yeah, and also it's nice to have a low light mode. It's nice to have a multicolor LED that does such a good job. But when you get down to it, the difference between and also there's nothing that can beat a strobe for actually giving you real like illumination, real light that penetrates more than like 2.5, 3 feet.
Right.
And the number of people who will use this, just they're not going to get like a Nikon SB600 flash the size of a shoe, but they're going to get maybe a little pocket flash, maybe something exactly like the Lume Cube that will have an extra actual strobe on it, not just a really bright LED, and the ability to say, gee, it's too bad that I can't like highlight. I can't get more light on the family in the foreground because I can't get them all in the picture. But if I stand close enough for the light to work, it'll just solve. I love the fact that we're now at the point of iPhone photography where we have to go into every single nook and cranny of photography to find out, okay, is there any kind of picture we can't take now? Like, oh, that's right. There's some that require flash. Great. We'll do some sort of a software synchronization thingy. Next, okay, is there a way that we can do it in underwater? Well, not without sealing up things. Okay, we'll work on that next. It's about removing restrictions to creativity, and this is why this is an exciting thing. One of my picks of the week a while ago was this little $60, $70 wireless flash it's about the size of a deck of cards, and leaves it. You can use it as a regular flash on a hot shoe, but you can also detach it from this little base, and it becomes a wireless flash. And the pictures I was taking at my first Comic-Con after it, portraits of cosplayers, just by being able to hold a flash off camera and to the side, made just such a huge difference. And I can't imagine how much cooler iPhone photography can be when people just have the ability to take something the size of an ice cube like the Lume Cube and suddenly be using off-camera flash and just getting so much more creative and so much into their photography.
What's that name of that little flash? Because I bought it too. I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
Oh, God, I can't remember it.
Chris Marquardt, when I showed it to him, and he bought it too. It was we're all excited by it. But how does it trigger the strobe? It does, doesn't it?
The device I'm talking about, it actually has leaves behind like a you can press a button and it will eject the body of the flash from whatever.
Oh, that's
actually
right.
attached
Attaches
to the base.
To your camera. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So
it wouldn't work with an iPhone. It wouldn't do that with an iPhone yet.
No, but you can imagine if it's simple enough how they could create a flash sync shoe, something you could attach to the bottom of any flash that would either in a wired fashion attach to hopefully the USB-C connector on the bottom of your iPhone 12, or even just synchronized via Bluetooth, where there'll be a shutter delay, but that delay will be enough to make sure that the flash is firing during the 1/60th of a second that the electronic shutter is going.
Yeah, I really like that device. I'm gonna try to find the name of it. I foolishly did not buy it on Amazon. I bought it from the Hong Kong distributor, and so I can't search my Amazon for it.
I'm searching for it now, and I know it's there because I actually bought a second one because you can actually use more than one off the same signal. I like the first one so much.
I might buy a second one too. It's so light and simple, and it uses regular batteries, so you can keep it in your. It's in my camera bag. That's why I don't have it here, but it's just a great little doohickey. And I would love to see that have some sort of sync for the iPhone. It's become the iPhone camera is now so good. It's and with the zoom and the
I found it.
Yes,
it's the Lightpix Labs Flash Q. I got it for my dad for his birthday coming up in January.
Don't tell Dad.
Whoops.
It's so cool, and it is on Amazon. Although I bought it from
super zoom stuff. I will not reach for my Pixel as much as I still do.
Yeah, this is it. The Flash Q22 with a new T2 transmitter, built-in. This is the new one. Ooh, it has a lithium-ion battery. Oh.
Yeah, for the flash itself runs on 2 AA's. The remote part that stays on your camera runs on its own internal battery.
Okay. Yeah.
But if you keep rechargeable batteries in it, you can just plug it into via any USB charger, and it will charge the batteries inside the flash.
Right.
I won't go into it again, but I love design like this where they think just simple things that they can add on that don't add to the cost, really don't add to the complexity, but it's just, hey, what if instead of making it really sexy and rounded curves and like a clamshell, what if we just made it square on every edge so that you could actually just you can just stand it on a bookshelf or stand it on any surface since it's going to be a remote flash.
Right. Really clever.
Yeah.
Really cool. Yeah, I don't mind giving that a second plug because it's such a useful little device. And I mean, where the iPhone has become that camera, I think the day is not far off when I stop carrying my camera bag and my thousands of dollars worth of equipment and just use my phone.
Yeah.
Getting very close. Tomorrow, something happens in the App Store. It's the App Store surprise.
Ooh.
Yeah. Don't know what it is. It's already Christmas Eve in Australia. That's how we know. Go ahead. Sorry, Larry.
They used to do something like this. It was like a giveaway, like a gift giveaway where you could download apps for free in the App Store. I can't remember what they called it back then, but it was a gift to us. And I hadn't seen it for a couple of years, so I'm happy to see some version of it come back. I guess we have to wait and see exactly what they're going to be giving us as presents. But I think, it's going to be some fun apps that we get to play around with.
Watch carefully. Wait a minute. Krampus X in our chat room. Update. The surprises have gone live in New Zealand. According to Mac Rumors,
spoil it.
readers Tony Duffy and L. Deverell, the deals include, you don't want to know?
No, go ahead.
Put your fingers in your ears. Actually, don't get excited. A special in-app purchase bundle for Looney Tunes World of Mayhem. And
God bless us, everyone.
And a 3-month subscription for the price of one in Canva. That's in New Zealand, though, and it may not be the same offers in the U.S. Neither one of those really gets me excited. So we're waiting.
Sometimes one of your aunts gives you socks. You still thank them for the thought.
Yeah. Have you played Looney Tunes? It is socks. Have you played Looney Tunes World of Mayhem? I haven't.
No, I haven't.
I have not, but.
Gather your tunes and tussle in fun-filled battles, whether that's solo in campaign mode or facing other players online in competitive mode. And for all the builders in the house, you can also create your own Toontown. The Holiday Boost Pack includes 200 gems and 1 golden ticket, 60% off. Well, that's it.
But Leo, don't throw shade at socks as a gift, because someone I really like gave me like a gift certificate to a sock store.
Oh,
and
who was that?
I'm
There,
actually
Andrew?
excited.
You got
about,
your
bombas,
huh?
really cool. I did not have a pair of canary yellow socks before, and now I do.
Yeah, we decided to patronize our sponsors in our host gifts this year. So all of you got socks.
Bombas are my most favorite socks ever of all time. Yeah, they're so comfortable.
I have never
and they
known
donate
that.
one pair of socks per one pair that you get. So I get super awesome socks, and then so does somebody else.
Isn't that awesome?
The only bad part of buying these socks was learning that the Sesame Street socks were almost completely out of stock in my size.
Oh man!
But yeah, that is like there's a long list. I should keep a list of all these little things that you don't that show that you're an adult versus a kid. And these little things, like one of them is like getting socks for Christmas, and you're like, ooh, like really nice, like merino wool socks. Like, lovely. Thank you.
Actually, my mom.
I don't buy good. I just buy like regular gold toe, like calf socks. Thank you. These are nice.
My mom knits me socks every year.
My mom does too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so great.
You're right. Socks are not a bad gift. Here's a gift from your Apple Watch. We now know the badges for the new Ring in the New Year Activity Challenge. It'll be back in January. I guess I didn't know they skipped last year, so you didn't get a 2019 badge. There's the 2020 badge. I know, Renee, you're all about the badges.
I've really been up and down with it this year because I have like these patterns, and trying to make videos every day has really disrupted every pattern in my life.
Oh.
But I'm looking forward to trying getting them all again. It's not that I didn't do stuff. It's I didn't do it in the exact way you needed to get like 5 kilometers all at once, or this thing by this time. I wasn't flexible enough. But
you'll be able to do this one. You have to complete all 3 rings 7 days in a row, anytime in the month of January. You can do that.
Yes.
Yes. You close your rings, don't you?
Sometimes.
Oh, Vector's not stopping you from closing your rings.
No, but it's like weird. It's like, well, I wish that there was some, because like sometimes you're on a plane that's so long, it cuts out the hours in the day, and then you have to cheat to sort of try and get the stand rings. Or sometimes it's just like you completely injured yourself or you're sick and you can't complete like the 30-minute. And I would love the idea of this is a cheat day, or this is my day off, sort of a thing where you didn't ruin your streaks, but you could be a normal human being.
That's absolutely right. I hurt my leg like a couple months ago, and so like I've been on crutches for like a couple. It's fine. It's just like a pinched nerve that's being solved by time and physical therapy. So don't worry about that. But it's like every single device that I have that tracks fitness is going into like sympathy mode, saying, "What if we change your move target from 20 minutes to 15 minutes?" And it's like, again, can I tell you that it would be so great if you could tell these apps that, okay, look, the doctor says that I should be like right as rain by mid-January. That I hope, could you focus on like just the hey great, you achieved your goal of just moving around more today than you did yesterday, or more this week than last week, because it's like I don't need pity for my fitness app. I know that I haven't been I know that I haven't been doing my like 3-mile constitutionals since like mid-October.
Are you
one thing I wanted? I did my 3-month later Apple Watch Series 5 review, and I just realized, because I've been doing all the quantitative life stuff, that was like one of my goals for this review, was to do like the hydration one and the sleep one. And usually I have all notifications turned off because I hate them. They're so interruptive and distracting. But in order for these to work, they have to be on. And I would love for WatchOS 7 next year, for Apple to make some sort of smart notification coalescence, so that if it realizes you haven't drunk anything recently, it dispatches that message to the central system, and it goes, oh, we're going to bug them about standing up in 7 minutes. We're not going to send them this now. We're going to queue it, and then we're going to say, stand up and go get some water. And that way we're not saying, get water. Oh, now go stand up. Oh,
that's a good idea.
Now you have this message. Yeah. Just like be an assistant.
Yeah, I like that idea. New arcade game, Builder's Journey. It's Monument Valley, as if it were in the middle of Lego. Let's see if it'll launch on my iPad. This just came out. Have you played the Rivals game yet?
No.
The hockey game. This has got famous. Wayne Gretzky's in it. This is the new one though. This is the Rivals game came out last week. Tap to pick up. Okay. Oh, look, it's like a little Lego brick. And then what? Put it on there. There we go. Hold the place. Okay. There we go. Oh, look at this. Got to spin it. How do I spin it again? Tap anywhere to rotate. And then place this. Oh, this is good. Who needs Lego anymore? I can just play it on my iPad. Look at that. This is, I think Apple Arcade is the gift that just keeps on giving.
Yeah.
You know, I really have to say I'm very happy with these. So I'm building something. I don't know what I'm building, but this is...
looks really good.
Yeah, it's kind of neat, huh? Mm-hmm. It's a puzzle game using Lego bricks.
Who made this one? What app developer?
I don't know. I don't know. That's a good question.
Find that out.
How can I find out?
It looks beautiful.
Go back to the App
Builder's
Store.
Journey.
Go back to...
go back to the App Store. Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah, and look
Apple
at it
Arcade games.
Yeah.
It's Lego.
Ah, there you go.
Officially Lego licensed.
Nice.
It even has an iPhone and Apple TV version. Of course, this is a Lego game that is a puzzle journey game. That looks really sweet. Look at that. Also, thanks to Krampus X, who used to be Scooter X until Christmas got him. This is a new product. I'm going to step up and buy this one right away for myself. A good stocking stuffer, $45. It's a charging dock for your Apple Watch that plugs right into your iPad's USB-C or your MacBook's USB-C port. And then charges your watch. Yeah.
So I'm split on this, Leo. Like, when would I want to give my iPad? Because I saw Dieter talking about this too. When would I want to give my iPad battery to my watch? Like, I understand there's some, like the fitness stuff, yes, but like notifications, I'm already getting them on the iPad.
Well, I'll tell you why I want this.
The battery.
This is a small travel charger. I'll plug in the MacBook Pro on one side. Plug this in on the other side, see? So I'll charge both at the same time. That's why I want it for travel.
Smart, yeah.
See? Now
but
much
it makes
to bring that
ports on the iPad Pro.
Yeah, it's not going to work with your iPad Pro. Well, it'll work. In fact, it's magnetic enough that it'll even work in vertical mode, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, this is great. We're carrying around this huge battery all day long. Yeah. I love the ability to source that not just as an iPad that I'm going to be using for 3 or 4 hours, but also the means to recharge my phone, the means to recharge my watch. It's just one less thing to forget. And I do have a cigarette lighter C charger, and more modern cars will have Type-C connectors. My next car will have a Type-C connector. You can just plug it into that and charge your watch in your car. There's a lot of times I wish I had a battery pack. Juice. Yeah, or a battery pack. Yeah. That's right.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you guys are so much smarter than me.
So now how much would you pay?
But wait, there's more.
But wait.
The one thing that I hate taking with me when I travel is the Apple Watch charger that comes with the Apple Watch, that long cord and this disc that just flops around. Yep. And I love having something I can take with me, but I also have like my favorite Apple Watch charger, which does not have, or my favorite iPhone charger, which does not have an Apple Watch charger on it. So I like this. It plugs into something that you already have with you.
Right.
And plugging it into your MacBook Pro, that's a really great idea.
Stekki's a good company too. I think I trust them. They make a lot of different charging. I have a Sateki Lite that I love. They make kind of goofy stuff. Let's see. What else? Mythic Quest. I would guess this is a show for Renee Ritchie. Apple has already ordered a second season of it. The series hasn't even launched. It'll launch in February. What is this about? Renee, it's centered around a team of video game developers as they navigate the challenges of running a popular video game. Oh, from the team that created It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Oh.
Yeah, that sounds... they've got some interesting stuff coming.
Yeah. Oh, I like this. I'm starting to like this. So obviously it'll be comedic, half hour, 9 episodes. This could be the next Silicon Valley, Mythic Quest.
I'm still waiting on the Spielberg show, too. I don't know when that's coming out.
Oh, that's right. Amazing Stories, right?
Yeah, Amazing Stories.
Amazing Stories. I have ordered the AirPods Pro, as I mentioned. I'm prepared for them to smell like blueberries, but do yours?
I can't bring myself to smell them. I just can't.
They do. I'm smelling them now.
I read this story. Renee? Oh my gosh.
Why do they smell like?
They smell like blueberries and model glue.
Is it just the case?
I think I'm high now.
Are you actually smelling one of your AirPods? Or are you just smelling the case? I don't even think I can do that. Micah would be horrified right now.
Federico Vitici, I think, discovered this a few days ago. He tweeted, "I hate that the internet made me smell my AirPods because they totally smell like blueberries." Well, now I really want to know.
I know, but I refuse to do it. I can't do it. I can't. I forgot about it, and thank you very much for bringing it up again, because now I'm very interested in knowing, but I still can't bring myself to do it.
Do they have antioxidants? That's my question.
Why would you not want to sniff your AirPods? I don't understand.
Let Micah tell you the
words
are great. Let's see. Snow Crash will be coming to HBO Max. I don't know if I have mixed feelings about that. One of the great sci-fi novels of all time, with perhaps the best first chapter ever written by Neil Stephenson. I don't know what kind of movie. I hate sci-fi.
And Foundation is still coming to Apple as well. That hasn't come out yet either.
A lot of times sci-fi does not make the move to the small screen very well. But on the other hand, there's The Expanse.
Expanse has been really good.
Yeah, The Expanse is very good. So...
It's interesting that I'm so glad that a lot of money is being thrown at making these adaptations of these classic books. My only worry every time I hear about one of these shows being licensed by HBO or another streaming network is that you do realize that this was a book that was written with a beginning and a middle and an end. You can't just make this. You can't just take the world from chapter 1 and try to get 8 seasons out of it. They barely got away with that with The Hobbit.
Yeah,
Yeah. And they're trying it with Witcher now, and Amazon is doing not the Silmarillion, right? The part that happens between the Silmarillion and Lord of the Rings, which is even weirder.
So The Witcher is based on the video game, right?
No, it's based on the books.
There's a book.
The short stories. I think the first season is based on a couple of the short stories.
Oh, I thought it was the video game The Witcher. Is The Witcher video game based on the book? The guy looks like Cavill looks like the guy from the game.
Yes. Okay. The game that comes way after the stuff that's happening in the show.
Karsten's such a nerd.
And they're supposed to do 7 seasons. I mean,
yes,
she says
the
showrunner says she has 7 seasons planned out.
What? This is Netflix hope to make a Game of Thrones, isn't it? They're banking on this one.
Like I said, Hercules and Xena with good production value.
Is it as good as Game of Thrones?
Hercules and Xena with good production
That's
value.
not a good.
Well, it's a different era, Leo. Like, these were written a long time ago, and I know Game of Thrones is taking a long time to write, but it doesn't have the level of political intrigue and power brokering that a Game of Thrones would have.
Somebody noted.
It really is like Monster of the Week plus some plot.
I think it was Zeynep Tufiki who noted, and I thought this was really astute of her, that most novels and certainly almost all TV shows are based on human psychology. Like you look at, the psychology of this guy versus that girl versus, that kind of the intermingling of human psychologies. Game of Thrones was more strategic politically. The humans were less important. It was the overarching politics and things happening in the North and stuff that motivated humans. And that had a longer lasting, I'm probably not saying her thesis well.
Game of Thrones was War of the Roses, right?
It was poli-sci.
Poli-sci,
it was
not
political
psychology.
Science versus psychology.
And I think that it rang true for me. I thought it was kind of astute.
Until the past, and her thesis was the past couple seasons, it went back into personal psychology. Yeah, that's right.
And it became less rich, right? Human psychology is fine and it drives a lot of stuff, but it's these grand themes that are more interesting.
Wasn't it War of the Roses, Leo? That was like the original inspiration.
It's based on the War of the Roses. That's right. Yeah, and the Lannisters are the Lancasters, And if that's worth looking into if you're a Game of Thrones fan.
And again, human, like our real history is way weirder than any book you can.
Well, that's why it's great. And really, our real history, as you look back, the psychology of the humans disappears. What was Henry VIII's psychology? Nobody knows, but about the forces that created, the events of the Tudor era. Yeah. So that's kind of why we like history. Maybe it's less psychology, more policy.
Oh yeah.
If it absolutely positively have to have a Mac, iPhone, iPad, or Apple Watch in 2 hours, you got one more day through Christmas Eve at 4 p.m. If courier delivery is available in your area, you can get 2-hour delivery for free from Apple, normally $9 in most metros. I should try this. Maybe I can get my AirPod Pro tonight.
It's almost worth $9 to put another human being through all that trouble. If I'm having a bad day, that's cheap. Well, for $9, will they also pick it up in like 13 days and let me return it?
Is it an Apple employee who does this, or did they go with a courier service? Let me see if I can.
Courier service.
Yeah. Let me see if I can.
It's not like Ted from the Genius Bar is having a slow day, so they send him out.
If I were Apple, that's what I'd do. It's exactly
right. Hey, Betty, stop showing that guy that headphones. Take this over.
Let me see. AirPods Pro. Let's see if I can get courier, add to bag, pick up January 24th, order delayed, delivers January 23rd. I wonder if there are any other delivery options. 94952. Let's view my options. Nope. No courier to me. Gosh, I'd love. But maybe that's just the AirPod Pro. Maybe that's because they just don't have them. Let's get something.
Yeah, those are still a month.
Those you can't get.
A month.
What if I had to have a clear case for the iPhone 11 right now? Let's see if I could get it right now. Courier delivery. I could have it. Wait a minute. $9.
But it's not free in your area.
What?
It says most metro areas, so maybe I think it works in Sacramento, but maybe your town is just too small for the free 2-hour delivery.
The Petaluma metro area.
Yeah.
but for people who are like me, notorious for shopping Christmas Eve, this might be a nice
Me
solution.
and Homer Simpson.
Yeah, so that's something, Leo, that the last, I can't remember how many years in a row, Apple has their deadline to buy date, and they make an announcement and they say, if you want to get your Apple products in time for Christmas, like the 18th or the 20th is the last day that you can order it to get it shipped. And the fact that they've completely thrown that out the window and said, guess what? 2 hours, even for $9, even if that's what you have to pay. Like, I could shop for anybody who just at the last minute said, oh, I'm coming to visit for Christmas. Even if I can't get anything anywhere else, I can get them something from Apple.
I'm coming to visit for Christmas. We're all coming.
We're on our way.
So
I'm picking up Andy.
We're going to go ordered right now.
Get that courier on the way. All right. We don't have any ads today, so I think we can skip right to your picks of the week. Let's start with Andy and Utko.
Perfect timing because we're recording the day before Christmas Eve, so people will get this probably exactly the right time for one of my favorite annual holiday traditions, which is the Patrick Stewart's audiobook of A Christmas Carol.
Oh, yeah, we love that.
For decades, he has been doing a one-man show on in theaters, doing his abbreviated version of A Christmas Carol, doing all of the characters and all of the voices. And to give you some idea, the first time I heard this was on cassette. And then I had to buy it on CD. Then I bought it on Audible. No matter how you get it, it really is one of the best versions of A Christmas Carol that you can possibly experience. It's probably the version that taught me that the secret.
A man of strong imagination.
A Merry Christmas, Uncle!
Oh shoot, we're both playing.
It was the voice of Scrooge's nephew, who came upon him so quickly that this was the first intimation he had of his approach. He had so heated himself with rapid walking in the fog and the frost, this nephew of Scrooge's, that he was all in a glow.
Let's his not get taken down.
This is what happens when a performer works on a piece of material for so long that they have thought about every single line, every single word, every single nuance, and boy, do you see it.
I got to say, if you go to Audible and search for A Christmas Carol, you've got some good choices. You can get, if you want, you can get Orson Welles' Christmas Carol, the radio dramatization. That might be kind of, let's play just a little bit of that.
No.
The clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it. And Scrooge's name was good upon change for anything he chose to put his hand.
Lionel Barrymore, too. You don't like that version?
I love the sound of that old radio sound. It's beautiful.
I just think it's the difference between Patrick Stewart, a really truly great actor, who this wasn't just, hey, Orson, if you're doing nothing next week in May, could you read a part of this A Christmas Carol for us? Okay, great. Yep, I got time for that. What are you going to pay? Great, that'll do it. It is such a beautiful performance. He's not just reading the book; he really is performing it on stage. And all I got to say is that he does all the kids' voices too, and he does Tiny Tim's voice, and he puts himself like in this countertenor voice.
Everyone.
Exactly, and that if that ain't worth like the $10, I don't know how to talk to you about.
What about this one? This is a dramatization featuring Sir Derek Jacobi.
Fisted hand at the grindstone. Draft reply to Mr. H. Pearson. Hard and sharp as flint.
Oh, I don't know. That's pretty. And that one's 3.5 hours compared to the mere hour and 47 minutes of Mr. Is he a sir?
I think he is now.
I think we have to call him a sir.
I think okay. I will concede that if there's ever like a version starring Patrick Stewart, Derek Jacobi, and Serene McKellen.
All right,
that'll get my attention. Really.
What about Jim Dale? Is there one with Jim Dale?
He's good too. I like Jim Dale.
Oh, he's my favorite.
There's a Tim Curry one.
There should be a Leo and Andy one
with Antissa.
Scrooge knew he was dead. Of course he did.
I love the British voices, I have to say. You know what? I got 2 Audible credits. Maybe I'll get one of these, or maybe I'll get 2 of them. You can never have too many Christmas carols.
Yes.
I just got the Patrick Stewart one. Thank you, Andy.
Nice.
That was such a great present. I am so excited to listen to that.
Great. It's only $10.46, but if you have a credit, you can just use your credit on it. Lori Gill, your pick of the week.
Yeah, so following up with the Christmas tradition and horror movies at Christmas time, which I love so much, I'd like to recommend Game Over, which is also called Dial Code Santa Claus, and it's also called 36.15 Code Pierre Noël.
It looks awful.
It's a French movie. It's kind of awful. So let me put this out there really quickly. There is a pretty horrific scene where they kill a dog. So not in real life, but they depict the killing of a dog. So if you're sensitive to animal stuff in movies, that one's pretty horrific looking.
Just to be clear, this is a serial killer who dresses as Santa.
He's not, well, believe me, there's much worse than this storyline. He's not a serial killer. He's actually a child murderer.
Oh, much better.
But okay, let me tell you though, what's so great about this movie is it was clearly made like with children in mind. I think it actually won an award in some sort of French children's movie festival or something. Because it's actually, other than the dog killing scene, it's really fun. It's this kid who dresses like Rambo. It's in French.
The kid wins in the end, so it's a good news. It's a happy ending. Yes.
And he's like trying to protect his old grandpa, and he's just this like great character on screen. Not unlike Rare Exports, it's this child who just like wins the day in terms of like what makes this fun to watch. Yeah. So.
Game over.
Really
Game
fun.
over, man. Game over.
Yeah. So right. I think you can watch it on Shudder TV. And outside of that, I actually have no idea where you can stream it because it's from 1990 or 1989, but you couldn't really watch it anywhere until recently. So.
I love it. The original title was just Père Noël 30.6. It was the 36 theme code part of the name.
Yes, but it has like 3 different names. I've seen it Pierre Noël, I've seen it Dial Code Santa Claus, and I've seen it Game Over, and I've seen it 30.15, but I've also seen it just 36.15. So I don't know.
I don't know what it means. All right.
Yeah. Renee might know more about the language.
Good pick. Good pick. Renee Ritchie, your pick of the week, Renee.
So my goal is to get you, fully back on Pokemon Go for the holiday season, Leo.
I was playing. I know we can walk with our friends now.
They've got a whole buddy engine built. Yeah. So I've got mine. I've got my little Mewtwo now as my
I'm walking
as my
with
friend.
the Dragonite. Oh, that Mewtwo looks good.
It's so good. And you can do these different things with I pressed the wrong button. But you can do these different things with them to get hearts and increase their buddy level. And as they go up, for example, if you throw a ball and you miss it, he'll headbutt it back to try and get the catch for you, and they'll bring you little gifts and they'll bring you items, and they'll increase their bonus damage, and you can raise them up to even higher levels than previously. And I kind of like that they're still investing in these sorts of things. Even now, you can also play with you can press a button, and if you have someone else near you, scan a code, and you get this interactive augmented reality environment where both of your buddies are there together in a sort of a shared virtual world, which is something Apple announced, I think, the WWDC before this one, and Lego was using to really good effect. But we haven't seen a lot of other, especially not these kind of real world games where you have actual settings for things, really implementing that part of the shared AR kit experience. And it's fun. Part of it is a little monotonous. Like, you've got to do a lot of things that's my one problem with Pokemon Go right now, is there's so many things. I think it would take an hour and a half if I did everything every day. So I just pick and choose the things that are fun and new and novel. And I've had a lot of fun with this. And it's nice that you finally sort of have a better virtual world to run around in.
Yeah, I think that adding the buddies was these are probably some of the biggest changes to the game mechanics in a long time. This is like a little Tamagotchi now that you got to feed and play and battle, and there's all sorts of things.
Do you know if this works with Pokeball Plus?
So this part doesn't need, like, there's no real Pokeball Plus things that you would do with this because you've already caught it. But it does work with Pokeball Plus for the rest of the game mechanics.
Just the rest of the other stuff it always worked with.
Yeah.
So I need to actually, I've been neglecting my poor Dragonite. He's starving. So
you can press play and then fast feed. That's what I've been doing now because there's not always room for the whole. Yeah. So if you press the bottom thing there.
Dragonite's so big, I don't have room for it.
Yeah.
So there we go. We're going to just give him a little. Those Poffins are great. They make him love you. So I'm going to buy a Poffin.
And then you get double. Double.
Let's
hearts.
feed him a Poffin. Come on. You give him. Oh crap! Did I lose? Oh,
you got to throw it, Leo. There you go. Oh,
now watch. He's gonna fall in love with me more. Oh, my Dragonite, my buddy, Opalo buddy. So now he's walking with me, right? Because I gave him as many treats as.
And you have the double hand.
Where is he? Why is he? Oh, there he is.
There he is.
Hey, Dragonite, how you doing,
bud? The animation is so cute.
It's really it adds a lot. Can he fight with you?
It looks amazing on the Pixel 4 at 60 hertz until the light changes slightly and it drops back to 30 hertz.
Turn on developer mode. You can make it permanent.
I know.
Yeah, it's worth doing. What is that? I've never seen this. A wild
That's
Shellos.
A regional. Oh. There's a blue one in Europe and a pink one here.
I got some catching to do. Pokemon, I gotta catch them all.
And they're doing a ton of events for the holidays, so there's going to be a ton of fun stuff going on.
They have really added to this game. They're keeping it alive, and it's too bad that Harry Potter. I haven't even looked to see if Wizards Unite has anything new, but it's been very.
It didn't do as well because I think they leaned into the Cupcake Factory mechanics. And some people love time management games, but it's hard to graft that onto a game where people are out and walking. It just makes you stop.
It's boring. Me and my Dragonite walking around the Twit Studios. All right, my pick is from Patrick Wardle. We were talking about him earlier, former tame hacker at the NSA. He's also a Mac guy, and you might know the name objective-c.com. That's his website. And he has a lot of really cool products, including one that I would highly recommend called Lulu. You're probably familiar with Shields Up, which is a long-standing kind of reverse firewall for the Macintosh that you run, and it keeps an eye on outbound traffic and asks your permission. Lulu is his open source version and same functionality, but it is free. And I have to say it's a little easier to use because when you first install it, it says, look, you just want to assume that everything you've already got installed is okay. And I say, yes, only new things now. And so that's a very handy tool. And I think it's been very useful without being overbearingly annoying. So every time I install a new app or I run an app that's asking for new permissions, Lulu will pop up and say, "Hey, Safari's trying to access the internet. Is that okay?" And you can give it permission. So this is like Lulu. It's like Shields Up, but I think it's newer and it's really great. Lulu, highly recommend it. I did run another one of his programs. I think it was called Oversight. Nope, that wasn't it. There's quite a few. I ran one and I had problems rebooting. I'm not sure if that was something I did wrong, but certainly Lulu is completely lockdown. That's what it was, and it was just a little script that changes settings on the Mac to make it secure. And after I ran that, I couldn't reboot, so I don't know what happened there. I'll have to do some examination, but it's a really interesting idea, and you can certainly download it. And these are all free, and run it just to find out which functionality is enabled. And probably don't toggle everything. Read these, and you'll see some of the things you can do to harden your Mac. This is basically a Mac hardening tool. But I like Lulu, and I haven't had any problems with it. It's really a wonderful product. Patrick Wardle does some really nice security tools, and they're absolutely free. Although you can support them on Patreon, and I would recommend that. Folks, has everybody done their picks? Are you all ready for Festivus?
Baking tonight.
Today you get to air your grievances, and the feats of strength are coming up. Where's our poll, John? You didn't put the Festivus poll up. Oh, Burke took down our Festivus poll.
Well,
that's
there's your first
grievance number one. So you're going to have people over, including all of us, right, Lori Gill, for the holidays?
Yeah, I guess you're going to be here tonight because your
arriving.
Gifts from Apple are coming in 2 hours.
That's right. Have a wonderful Christmas and Happy New Year. It's been a real pleasure having you on the show. This was the year Lori became a regular on the show, so we're
it's been an exciting year, and I am so happy to be part of this team. And everybody who is a Twit member, listener, who listens to MacBreak Weekly, who is a part of the larger company, has been so welcoming. I've never experienced anything like that. Such a great family experience that comes along with being able to be on this show. So thank you to everybody also that listens. I read everything that you write, and I listen to everything you say. I get some emails from some of you and have had great conversations, and it's really been wonderful. I absolutely love it. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being a part of our show. We really appreciate it, Lori. Andy Anako, are you going to sous vide a little turkey and get some cranberry sauce? What are your plans for the holidays?
Big family Christmas party tomorrow night.
Nice.
and then Christmas Day, basically telling people that, well, I'm having an open house, so if you want to come visit me, so that I don't have to walk and I don't have to walk and drive over.
Smart man.
I'm using. That's one of the nice things about temporarily being on crutches during the holiday. Oh, well, I would, as normal, just go visit everybody on 8 or 9 different houses all across New England, but oh darn.
Did I miss something? Why are you on crutches?
Oh, it's nothing. It's I tweaked my leg a little bit during my last trip to New York, and it's everything's it's just like one of those weird things where for some reason some nerve gets pressed, and it just it's getting better like month by month, and it should be okay.
All right.
So nothing permanently set up. As I've been telling people, I'm on the crutches long enough that I put anti-reflective tape on them, not so long that I decided to paint them a more interesting color.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Andy. This has been a great year with you, and I look forward to another wonderful 2020. Thank you so much for being part of the Mac.
Same here, and double down on Lori. She was such a great addition to the team, and just continues to make this one of the highlight of my week. Just sitting down and just talking to friends that I respect. Sometimes arguing with them, but it's just a really great couple hours every single week. I look forward to every time.
Yeah, Renee Ritchie. He's been so busy creating Vector. This is really the year Vector took off, isn't it?
I've had so much. I feel like the first few months when I was started, I was just making so many mistakes, and I'm still doing that. But I feel like I'm improving now at least, so I'm super happy.
Nice. Well, it's a great show. Everybody should watch it every single day. You can find it at imore.com/vector, and of course you'll find Renee here with the gang every Tuesday. We normally recorded this a little early because we wanted to give people Christmas Eve off. We normally record 11 a.m. Tuesdays. That's 2 p.m. Pacific. That's 1700 UTC. And if you want to watch us do it live, twit.tv/live. You can even join us in studio. And oddly, even though it's the eve of Christmas Eve, we've got a bunch of visitors in the studio. Great to have Jason and Han from Toronto. And where are you from? New guy. Did you give me a card? Oh, Lee is here from Larkspur, just down the road. There we go. If you want to join us in studio, just email tickets at twit.tv. We are normally here. We will not be here for the next few days. We come back January 2nd, and our next MacBreak Weekly will be January 9th. No, January 7th. So, and I won't be here because I'll be at CES, but we're still going to have a MacBreak Weekly on January 7th.
Leo, I'll be there too, so we should definitely meet up.
Are you going to be at CES?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. And I'm thrilled. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
You could be
we'll definitely connect.
Well, look for me and Ann. I don't think it'll be hard to find us. It's Leo and Ann's excellent CES adventure. Whoa, dude.
I'm excited.
Dude, look at all the junk.
In time, everything will be all right.
It's going to be awesome. I got a big black wig. We got a red curly wig for Ann. It's going to be fantastic. Thank you all for being a part of the MacBreak Weekly family in 2019. 2020 is going to be even better. I hope you will stop by. If you can't watch it live, of course, you're going to get an on-demand version of everything we do at twit.tv/mbw. Next week, it's a best of the highlights from 2019. Karsten's put together a highlight reel, so that should be a lot of fun. And let's see. Oh, subscribe. You know what? This would be a great Christmas gift to all of us if you would subscribe in your favorite podcast application. That way you'll get it automatically the minute it's available, and we appreciate that. So thank you, everybody. Time to say back to work and to the holiday festivities, because break time is over. Happy New Year! Merry Christmas! Happy Hanukkah! Happy Kwanzaa! Happy Festivus for the rest of us! And Solstice, too.